Welcome to Conversations Live. For more than a decade, we've brought you the best in books, entertainment, and current events. When the movers and shakers of the world have something to say to you, they say it to us first. Now, here's your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Conversations Live. I'm your host, Cyrus Webb. Glad you all could join us once again. Whether you're tuning in on the radio dial here in Mississippi, we welcome you all back to our program. Also, those tuning in through our online outlets, we welcome you, including our iHeart Radio family. We're glad to have all of you with us as well. Linnea Sage is making her first appearance on our program today. She's an actress that's not only been able to identify what she loves to do in life, but then to be able to share that with all of you. We're going to talk to Linnea not only about the journey to being able to being an actress, but also what it's been like for her to do work that she loves and to be able to see the response. And just so hearing about Linnea, we'll tell you at the end of our segment how you can stay connected with her. Linnea, hello to you, though, and welcome to the program.
Hey.
Glad to have you on with us, Linnea. You know, let's start off by talking about even this year, 2018. I mean, you were on such a high in 2017. What has it been like for you, Linnea, to kind of reflect on all the great things that have been coming your way?
That's so interesting. I do feel like at the end of every year, I sort of try to look back and, be extremely grateful for everything that's happened to me. But, when 2018 started, I was just like, time to plow ahead, moving on, doing more.
Right. Well, you know what? I think that's one of the great things about it. And doing more is something that's not just a part of who you are. I noticed even in prepping for this segment, Linnea, you've been on this journey of being able to keep pushing forward for a while. When did you realize that acting was that thing for you that you were so passionate about?
Well, I've been acting since I was a kid, which I think a lot of people end up saying that. But it's true, and I didn't become my ultimate career goal until I was in high school, when I really started taking it on seriously and started seeing all of the opportunities around me and realized that, just like any career, if you focus and you work hard and you don't stop and you let the opportunities come in, eventually they're going to.
Right. For sure. Could you have imagined in the beginning, though, Linnea, as you kind of briefly look back as you're going on to the next thing, could you have imagined, though, that hard work and that persistence would get you to where you are today?
Well, in my mind, I'm nowhere near where I want to be. I've had so many great opportunities, but it's a never-ending journey, and I've pivoted so many times to end up where I am, which is very cool because I'm still on this awesome journey, and I've also gotten to do all these other strange things. Like I never thought I would end up being a comedy writer. I never thought I'd be writing for Backstage Magazine. I never thought I'd be influencing other people and inspiring them in ways that wasn't just strictly acting. And so it's very cool to sort of like try to take an outside perspective and look at my life and be like, yeah, this is cool.
Right. For sure.
But yeah,
sure.
It's definitely not over. I'm definitely ready for the next thing.
And I think that's the great thing about it, always being ready. And we have been able to, even when I was prepping for this segment, when we, found out you're going to be on the program, Linnea, going back and even checking out, your social media, being able to reflect on that. I mean, of course, these days, everything seems to be right at our fingertips. Do you find yourself, even as you are scrolling through, looking at your personal pages, like on Twitter, where people can find you at Linnea Sage there, that it's like, wow, I really have done a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's so funny. That is literally exactly what happens to me. Every once in a while, I'm just, I've got nothing to do for an hour, so I'm like, just checking up on my own social media and seeing, what I've done for the last couple of months. And it really does. That's one of the reasons why I love social media. I think it can be toxic. Absolutely. I think if you don't have a strong connection to yourself and you let FOMO take over and you're constantly envious, which happens to all of us, that social media can be toxic. But I just think of it as like my journal, honestly. I also use that app Time Hop every day, which I love, seeing what I did this day last year and 3 years ago and who I was. And can't help but be like embarrassed at some of the ridiculous things I wrote. But but it's just a way to keep track of how far you've come, so long as you believe you've come far, I guess. I mean, that's what it is for me.
Right. And I noticed, too, I mean, just going back to 2017, Linnea, I mean, you've added a couple of slashes to your name throughout this journey of being not only an actress, but also a writer, being a producer. And, I mean, you know, there's not very many actors that I speak to on this platform that can say, hey, now on Audible, it's this thing that I did, or I'm in this commercial. I mean, I think wow is sometimes one of the things that happens to me all the time when I kind of reflect on things or look at things like, you know what, wow, I think sometimes we can, because we're so in it, we don't always realize, okay, this is a big deal. I mean, for yourself, I mean, when you were making a post like that, like at the end of last year about, hey, on Audible, there's this project that I narrated, if you want to be able to hear it, I mean, do you kind of have those inner wows?
No. It's funny, like, and it's my own fault, because growing up, I had this vision of what it would be like to have my career and what it would be like to work hard and then achieve things in a very stereotypical fashion. Because another thing I really think is that, unfortunately, growing up, when you ask a little kid, hey, what do you want to be when you grow up? There's basically doctor, princess, or actor. And so it's tough, because you end up with these very strict definitions of jobs, and it's difficult. What happened to furniture creator or something like that? And so I grew up thinking, this means I'm successful, and once I achieve this, I'm successful. And so, even though I try to get out of my head like that and have those wow factors, so there are still blockages inside me that I'm working on. And I know that if I was outside looking in and I saw Linnea Sage having all of these experiences, I would say, wow, Linnea, that's so cool. Great job. But, we're our own worst critics, right?
Yeah. Well, you bring up an interesting point that I want to kind of stay with for a moment, Linnea. I mean, do you find that also is what drives you, realizing that you're not where you want to be? Yes, you've done a lot. I mean, again, I get this from my friends, so I totally get what you're saying. My friends tell me this all the time. Well, Cyrus, you've done this, you've done that. But you think about where you want to go. Do you think that is one of the things that keeps you pushing? Because even though, yes, you've done X, Y, or Z, there's still more out there that you want to explore.
Exactly. And I just happen to be pretty ambitious, and always I try to keep myself really busy, especially with passion projects, whether that's just, painting on a mug or actually producing a short film. So it's just, I don't think it's possible to ever stop trying to do more.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where that journey ends, but I'm guessing death.
Well, look, it definitely shows us, the importance of keep working. And I think too, the other side of that, Linnea, now that you've said that, is for us not to get too comfortable, right? I mean, not to get too comfortable that, yes, I've done this. Because for some people, we both know this happens, they judge themselves on their last project instead of their next project. And I think so I get it. I totally get it. And I think that's a great reminder for our audience. I want to say, for those who are just tuning in, either on the radio side or online, you're listening to Conversations Live. We're excited to welcome Linnea Sage to our program today. Linnea is an actress. She's a writer. She's a producer, an individual who's definitely doing what she loves, and we're able to kind of take the ride along with her. We mentioned social media earlier, Linnea, and, I say all the time on our program here that when used responsibly and respectfully, it can be an amazing tool. I mean, it helped me in learning about some of your past projects. I mean, part of what's happened for you, though, is that you're having people rooting you on social media.
Right.
Talk to us about that and the idea of having fans, or I know some people like to call them extended friends, or, how do you kind of deal with that?
Yeah, I'm so thankful this morning I actually woke up to just a really, really beautiful comment on one of my Brainless Agenda videos. And from somebody, I have no idea who this person is, just a completely random human who said she just binge-watched my entire series and wants more. And those are the things that really keep you going when somebody who's not a friend, who has no obligation to you at all, and they just tell you that they like it. Because, of course, I think 90% of the internet is just trolls. So it's you expect the hate, I guess, but when you get the love, it like supersedes the hate by 1,000,000%, and it just it like that comment just made me want to get up and go write like 5 more episodes.
Gotcha. We're going to talk more about Brainless Agenda for sure. Before we get into that, though, I do want to ask you about another thing, and I think this is something else that people universally can relate to, Linnea, and that is about the fear. I mentioned this to you before we went on here because there are some people out there that can't get out of their own way. They have an idea of what they want to do, and quite frankly, they allow what other people say to stop them. They allow what they kind of tell themselves to stop them. How have you not allowed that to happen to you?
I mean, I think everybody has an inner critic, and I definitely have one. Thankfully, I've always been good. Well, nobody really tells me I can't do anything, or I'm just not hearing it.
Yeah.
I think from a young age, I never really allowed anybody else to dictate how I live my life, except for my mother, but that's different. You can't not let your mother tell you what to do. But in terms of my own inner critic, yeah, it is strong. There are definitely times where I wake up and I don't have a lot on the schedule or something. And, of course, that's an opportunity to create more. But sometimes, it gets to you. But it's really something that I actively work on. I do, I'm like very spiritual. I do a lot of yoga. I try to meditate a lot and get those thoughts out, and I think that's really the first step, is just not letting those thoughts affect you, because everybody has the thoughts. You just need to release them and keep going. I mean, like, what are you going to do? Just crawl in bed and like never leave? Like, that's boring.
Right. For sure.
As they say, if you're bored, then you're boring.
And I think that is, again, is another good point. Being bored, that's a totally different conversation, because it's so funny to me. I never feel like I have enough time. So when I see people post online about being bored, I'm like, wow, how do you do that? How are you able to do it? So that's something to think about for sure. So that brings us to of course, the project that you mentioned that I had fun being able to see as well, Brainless Agenda. Talk to us about how it kind of all came about.
Well, Brainless Agenda started as really just a one-off. My first episode, which is Daily Life of an Actress, which is a young white millennial male filmmaker who is casting his next project, and it really reflects everything as a female actor that we have ever seen, which is just some young millennial guy thinking that he's going to make the next big Tribeca Film Festival hit with his short film with full nudity. Girl's got to shave her head, and these are things that we as actresses roll our eyes at all the time. And this episode actually came out before any of the Harvey Weinstein stuff hit the fan. And so I'm actually really proud that I was able to have that video go a bit viral in different communities. I mean, acting communities, really. Before any of that, because I've always tried to meet frustration with humor, and this was just a way for me to do that. And then, of course, all the Me Too things started happening, and I take credit for it completely. I'm just kidding. But yeah, so I made that and, teamed up with a very cool animator who brought my illustrations to life, which was really important to me to be able to control the illustrative part of it, even though I don't know how to animate. So he was able to work with my illustrations and make and bring them to life. And I realized that I had a lot more to say, and I had a lot of different personalities that I wanted to pick on, and it just became a series. After like 6 or 7 episodes, I realized that I had a thing, and my team thought I had a thing, and they wanted to pitch it, and they wanted to see more of it, and they wanted me to develop it. So it's still a process, but a new episode's coming out next week. So
wow, Wow. Well, for our radio audience and our online audience, that's great news for them. We'll remind them of that, of course, at the end of the segment. I want to go back to something you mentioned about this, because I think it goes to what is so important for all creatives out there. You know, I hear writers say this all the time, the importance of writing what you know. Do you feel as though because the seed kind of began with something that you knew as far as the industry and sometimes the demands on, you know, individuals in the industry, that is one of the reasons why it's had the success, because it comes from an authentic place?
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Well, as a writer, I don't know how anybody can write something they don't know. And I feel like, you know, you put a little bit of yourself into everything you write. And yeah, after that episode, and it was successful, and I had proof of concept and thought, what else do I know? You know, who else do I want to shake and say, you're doing it wrong? And so that's sort of where it was born. And I also, you know, playfully pick on people like my mother in the Jewish bagel episode. But she loved it, thank goodness. I was actually nervous to show her. And I was like, this is based on you, but it's not you. I promise it's not you. But it's her. And she loved it, which was really great, because people can laugh at themselves. And that's really just a beautiful thing is, you know, if you realize that you're being one of these characters, you can find humor in it. And we all are a little bit ridiculous, and we just need to accept that.
For sure. Totally agree. Well, I'm reminded of my ridiculousness every day, I think. So I think that, you know, that's something, again, that everyone can be able to embrace. As well as embracing individuality, Linnea, we have to talk about this, because in an industry where people are trying to be the next X, Y, or Z, how have you been able to stay so true to yourself along the way?
I think it's because I'm still finding myself. I think that I'm still working on that. You know, what does make me me? I also think, you know, as teenagers and in college, and when you're around these huge groups of people constantly, you're sort of struggling to fit in maybe, and you lose a bit of yourself. But when you, especially when you get to express yourself creatively in literally any sense, you find a little bit more of yourself every day. And it's about constantly asking yourself, I think, do I like this? And then if you like it, keep doing it. And if you don't, then don't.
Yeah. If
you have that choice, I hope. But, you know, people get lost in their jobs and in their relationships and in their life. And I think people just put up with things when, like, they really, really don't have to.
Yeah, for sure. Really good point. Really good point. All right, I'm going to ask you a question. If there is a scripted question per se on this program, I found myself asking this question quite a bit because I'm just curious at the response that I've been getting. Do you see yourself as a role model, Linnea?
Aw, not yet. I mean, yes, because because the way that I live, I think would is positive. You know, it's healthy in a sense. Like I approve of myself, and so I think that other little girls and boys would approve of that too. Of course, some of the language in Brainless Agenda is a little mature, but I do. I think I am. Again, I'm still on this journey that I don't think I'm anywhere near the end of, so it's hard for me to feel like ready to be a role model to anybody. But I think so long as I'm living in this mindset, then yeah, gotcha. I can be.
There you go. Well, I think you are, but I was curious as to if you saw yourself as, you know, and let me tell you why I say that. I say it because even in this conversation, and you and I have never spoken before ever, there are three things that I picked up on that I think are great universal things for anyone, regardless of what their profession might be, or their interest might be. The first thing that came across, you know, right from the beginning, is the confidence in yourself. I think you have to have that confidence in yourself that you can do whatever it is that you strive for. I think, too, the self-awareness of realizing that, you know, you want to be you, and not trying to be someone else. But also, 3, not afraid to shake things up. I think having conversations like what you're able to do with Brainless Agenda, I think those are necessary things to do if you want to be able to set yourself apart. And so I think you've definitely been able to embrace that, and it's worked for you. And I think the proof of it working is the response to not only Brainless Agenda, Linnea, but also just your work in general. And I think that's one of the things that will continue to serve you well.
Thanks.
Yeah. Well, I will ask you this because we want our audience to be able to follow you and stay connected with all the things that are coming up. As you mentioned, a new episode of Brainless Agenda is coming up. I want to tell them how they can find that. Before I do that, though, I want to ask you this question about moving forward. I mean, you've done so many great things. Is there anything outside of Brainless Agenda that we should be looking forward to that you can tell us about at least?
Yes. Well, I'm in a short film that's currently in a festival circuit, so unfortunately nobody can see it until we either get rejected from all the festivals or we make it into the festivals, which is great, and that's called Women's March. It was created by 2 of my great girlfriends, and they are so funny, and, it's about a group of girls getting ready for the Women's March, and they are pretty much the worst people ever, and doing it for all the wrong reasons. And it's so funny. And I'm also a part of a feature film called Oh Crappy Day, which was just put off a little bit. So I'll be filming that later this year. And I'm constantly just trying to create more of my own stuff outside of Brainless Agenda. So hopefully those things will be great. Oh, and I also narrate the Feathers and Fire trilogy on Audible, which is an incredibly well-written series about a girl named Callie Penrose, who is a wizard, and she fights monsters for the Vatican. It's really well-written. It's so funny and
good. Wow. Awesome. So a lot of great things, which is a great segue to this last question. How can our audience stay connected with you, Linnea?
Please follow Brainless Agenda at Brainless Agenda on Instagram. You can also find it on YouTube. And you can follow my personal account on Instagram, which is Linnea, which is LINNAYEAHHH. It's not really a great thing to say out loud, but once you're there, it's worth it, I think.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Linnea, for the time. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to our next conversation together.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on the show. This was fantastic.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And we thank your audience for tuning in to another great segment of Conversations Live. If you all came in late and missed part of the conversation with Linnea, don't worry. Thanks to our online friends, you all can catch the replay right after we go off the air. The link is already available through our social media sites. So head over to Facebook.com/Cyrus Webb or go to Twitter.com/Cyrus Webb. If you click on the link there, you can listen to the show completely for free and share with your friends from there too. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Make sure you take out time to enjoy some good music as well as a great book. Thank you all for choosing Conversations Live today. You all make it a great one.